So Vice News did a really great report on our infrastructure and how it failed in the wake of record flooding in the Midwest. Take a look at this.
In 1936, Congress assigned the task of flood protection to the Army Corps of Engineers. More than 100,000 miles of levees were built across America, and without them, wide swaths of the Midwest would flood every year. But by restricting rivers, levees make them deeper and more powerful, increasing the risk of devastating floods. In 2019, these aging systems buckled under the combined pressure of stronger rivers and heavier rains. And with more rain on the way, the Army Corps is scrambling to put temporary fixes in place.
This is a record flood. So all the floods we've had in the past, nothing can touch what we just went through this last month.
Uh-huh.
Everywhere we see a yellow dot,
That's a breach.
that's a breach.
That's a levee failing.
It's a levee failing. The first thing we need to do is close these critical breaches to stop the flow in and try to get this infrastructure back in place, because we need the infrastructure to repair the levees.
Right.
Without these roads open,
We can't transport material.
Can't transport material or equipment, we're done.
So, what are you doing here now?
This is a temporary fix. We have emergency contracts. They're quick contracts, very minimal design. We give the contractors a couple hours to bid it. They jump on it right away. We're done within a week.
The floodwaters haven't even subsided yet. So, can you describe the scope of the challenge?
It's immense. It's a biblical flood for us. It's going to tax the resources of everybody around. We have over 500 miles of levee to provide to reduce the risk of flooding.
Okay.
Of those 500 miles, we had over 50 breaches.
A long-term solution will take years. Simply making barriers higher as the climate changes could make future floods worse. So the Army Corps is trying to widen the river as they rebuild. Are people asking you to build the levees higher?
There's a press conference at Council Bluffs where the governors of Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri broached that question. Why are we building it back to the same heights? Should we build it higher? Should we build the levees different? If we built it in front of the existing levee, we'd be constraining the waterway more, and that would tend to let the water rise. So a levee behind the existing breach lets the waterway to get a little bit bigger, so it's not going to cause the water to rise up. So it's going to provide the same level of protection that we had before. So there's going to be a lot of setback levees we have to build. We won't have a choice but to build a setback levee.
And do you have the money for that?
No.
No.
We needed appropriations from Congress. We need additional funds to have that happen.
Politicians in the Midwest are trying to get those funds, but they'll need to take into account a landscape that's changing fast.
I said after 93, I was old enough to remember it, and I remember helping my dad. We moved all this stuff out and this and that. Never thought we'd see anything like it. And then 2011 came along, and it was completely different, but, historic floods, levees breaking and this and that. I thought, man, we're never going to see that again. Well, here we are 8 years later, and it's worse.
Sorry your life was totally destroyed and our infrastructure is crumbling under your feet. We wasted all the money we were going to use on that in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's if the government was being honest. That's what they'd say. Money to fix levees that have been there since the fucking New Deal? These things are ancient. Ancient! Our infrastructure is mostly built during the New Deal. Instead of upgrading it, we wasted $7 trillion in Iraq. $7 trillion. Let that number sink in. Couple trillion more in Afghanistan. Sprinkle in a few more countries where we're bombing and waging a shadow war in Africa and fucking trying to topple the Iranian government. And now we're doing the same with Venezuela and trying to focus on that. As if regular people are like, I do want you to fix the levees that just breached and flooded my house that I've had for 4 generations, but I'd rather you go topple Maduro. It's embarrassing, man. It's embarrassing at this point. Our country is so broken and corrupt that we got to the point, I'm pissed we even got to the point where the levees breached and there was flooding and there weren't enough upgrades in the first place. And now the shit hit the fan and now it's scrambling to try to fix it. And they can't even do a permanent fix right now because they have to do the temporary fixes because it's already fucking flooded. So this is the problem, man. This is the problem. I just spoke to somebody who went to China, and they were talking about how they have high-speed rail in China, and you're going like over 300 miles an hour. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, China has high-speed rail, and we don't. Like, that alone pisses me off to no end. I think there should be high-speed rail all across this country, connecting major city to major city. I really do. I think that should be the case. I think you should be able to go from New York City to D.C., D.C. to fucking Orlando. You know, like, there should be high-speed rail all across this country. In the same way that we had the New Deal and the highway system was created, why not do a high-speed rail system now? Something that Democrats, and you force the Republicans to get on board through sheer political will and through, ruthlessly calling them out until they support it. Why not? Why not do that? On top of upgrading our current existing infrastructure, our airports are total shit, total garbage. I visited my sister, and I had to drive, over the GWB recently, and man, like, there's so many little potholes everywhere, fucking, like, legit crumbling beams over, like, you look to your left and you see something crumbling. This is, like, embarrassing shit, man. We no longer look like a developed country in many ways. And it's pathetic. It's pathetic. And as a New Yorker, it saddens me. So there you have it. The chickens are already coming home to roost, and that should terrify everybody, and that should mobilize us to get acting.